Did you kill your daughter?
No. That's an emphatic no. I mean, the ludicrous thing is what's been purported from Portugal is that Madeleine died in the apartment by an accident and we hid her body. Well, when did she have the accident and died? Because the only time she was left unattended was when we were at dinner. So if she died then, how could we have disposed or hidden her body, you know, when there was an immediate threat? It's just nonsense. So, and if she died when we were in the apartment or fell and did something, why would we cover that up?
And this is what we call the embedded confession. This is where a guilty party will put together in their own language what happened. And we need to listen and believe them. We also have the principle of them asking questions. This is very important. They're asking questions to find out how their answers will be responded to. Will it be ridicule? Would it be acceptance? Will it sound sane? Will it help get them off the hook? Listen very carefully to what they say. It's a yes or no question. Did you kill your daughter? No is a good answer. And what I teach investigators to do is when someone is asked a yes or no question is to count on their fingers the number of words following the word no. No. That's an emphatic no. And on and on, and obviously it goes into the point where it goes beyond your 10 fingers. When it goes that long, very simply speaking, there is a need to persuade. So the no is not going to stand on itself. If he said, no, I didn't kill my daughter and I'm telling you the truth, this would be something very strong. Then we'd have to ask about her. And we'd also have to ask, did something cause your daughter's death? That sort of thing. But here, no, that's an emphatic no. The first thing we know about his denial is that his denial, from his perspective, needs some help. It's weak. That's an emphatic no. So the first thing is no, okay, an emphatic no. My no needs emphasis. Why does it need to be emphasis? Is one. I mean, the ludicrous thing is what I suppose what's been purported from Portugal is that Madeleine died in the apartment by accident and we hid her body. Okay. What he tells us here is Madeleine died in the apartment, his words, by an accident, which would support the pronoun we that we heard between mother and child, and we hid her body. I believe him. The reason I say this is an embedded confession is because he is not entering any other language. He's not quoting anyone. For instance, if I said, well, you said that I killed her, that's not an embedded confession because I'm actually quoting you. Here, he's not only is he not quoting anyone, he's only saying what's been purported, not even an accusation. And we need to be listening to him. This now tells me, as an analyst, Madeleine died in the apartment. So I know from their language thus far that Madeleine is not alive. They are in need of an alibi. The death was not intended, and the location of the death is in the apartment. And again, by accident. And then I know something else now. I know that we hid the body. Jerry and his wife, the two McCanns together, they worked together to hide her body. Then he goes into questions, and this is where guilty parties are looking to see what a response is. They're disguised as rhetorical questions, but they want to see what people respond to them as. This takes place even in the interview process. Well, when did she have the accident and died? Okay, what they want to know is, do people know the exact time of death? Because the only time she was left unattended is not the only time we left her. He's now removing himself from that. Left unattended is passive. Was when we, which shows unity between him and his wife, were at dinner. So if she died then, which this is, we call this an allowance. The father of a missing child is allowing for a scenario that denial will not allow. There's no natural denial. He's saying if she died, then, not even if she was dead, which is itself a red flag, but now about a specific time. how could we have disposed, hidden her body? The word disposed and then hidden, the change there, actually shows respect for Madeleine. It's a softer terminology. Not dump the body, and he even changes dispose, a self-correction from disposed to hidden. He now tells us that they didn't dispose the body, they actually hid it. This is why, and this confirms the priority. We want there to be light, we want there to be searching. By the way, we also want them to find Madeleine. But it's last on my list of priorities. So I now know that Madeleine is dead, Madeleine died in the apartment, and listen to his questions. When did we do this? How did we do this? You know, when there's an immediate, it's just nonsense, self-censoring again. And if she died when we were in the apartment or fell and died, why would we cover that up? Okay, that's the most important question he asks. So he now introduces something else that may have happened. Madeleine fell. I am concerned and remain concerned that Madeleine may have been drugged in any way, shape, or form, whether it be nighttime cough syrup or something more, so that these people could go and have their dinner and their party and get their break and all that, that Madeleine awoke and fell and got injured, and the injury was beyond.
Yeah. Can I just interject with a question, Peter?
Sure.
When he's saying, he's alluding to the fact that he doesn't think they would have had time on that particular evening to deal with the body. Could that suggest that there's been pre-planning and the meal was orchestrated to allow for a window for their phantom abductor? And he's confident that he can show the audience that there's not enough time for them to have done that. So in other words, it's possibly happened on a previous time.
Yes, it is possible. And the focus on time, which he doubles up on, opens that door up now for us.
Right.
We have to consider it. Intention, it hasn't changed. In other words, that this death was not intended is not changed by this. But the fact that they do, or he does, in his language, focus so much on time, we must now be open to the possibility that he has a confidence about this time frame because it happened at a different time frame. So the answer is yes.
Okay.
What he's doing is he's affirming every other point of analysis. So when I said earlier that we look at little point here, little point there, he's now summed it up for us. The reason why this father does not show any concern about what Madeleine is going through is because Madeleine is beyond experiencing anything that he would need to be concerned about. They hid her body.
Right. That's
That's what they did, according to his language. But I don't think we should dismiss quickly that he introduced falling. She was very tired, Kate said. They had left her for their own. And so he asked the question, why would we cover this up? And the answer is quite simple. We have professional people who have 2 other children, an unintentional death. You're going to lose custody of the children.
Another motive might be if there had been signs of abuse.
Yes.
That would come up in a, with the hospital.
In the inquiry, sure.
Yeah.
He, as a medical professional, in any way, they are very likely to have knowledge of child abuse because it's just part of that profession where they deal with that. Now we have some indications there that would need much further exploration for possible sexual abuse, and there is a risk of the consequences for an unintended death. That's number 1. Risk of losing the other children, number 2, and then as you point out, when Child Protective Services sends in a professional to investigate, every case is explored for sexual abuse, whether there's allegations or not. All indicators of all possible abuses are explored for. Neglect, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse are going to be explored for in every case. because we have some linguistic indicators, which could be them as parents, it could be them as abusers, it could be him as an abuser, it could be her failure to protect. We have to explore for it. Right. The consequences could go on more than just losing custody of the twins. Mm-hmm. It could be loss of freedom. Yeah. When a guilty person asks questions, they're floating out alibis, they're looking to see what sounds plausible. And in his question, he says, well, when did she have the accident, not a accident, the accident, and died? The only time she was left unattended was when we were at dinner, so, which is establishing his alibi. If she died then, how could we have disposed of hidden her body? Now, it's interesting, when some people ask questions like that, they don't always get the answers they want to hear. By asking a question, they're trying to portray it as if it's not plausible while they're giving out information and admitting what happened. Mm-hmm. This is an embedded confession and statement analysis. This is not the quote of someone else accusing them. This is what was purported to come out from Portugal. What he's saying to you is Portugal police know. They may make various statements, but the investigators on the ground, if we were to talk to them, the ones that first responded, they would tell you exactly what they feel about this case, and I think it would be right here, mm-hmm. that it's a cover-up.
And that gets even more ludicrous, that we've obviously hidden her somewhere incredibly well, where nobody's found her.
I believe what she's telling me. I believe that, first of all, the word obvious means to accept without question, and I am following it. That we've obviously, it's obvious to, and this is a concern of hers, that people recognize they've hidden her somewhere incredibly well where nobody's found her. Now, consider this. This is supposed to be from a mother of a missing child who is spending a lot of time defending herself, trying to ridicule the accusations, instead of pleading for her safe return and talking about what she's going through. Mm-hmm. Again, there is no concern for what Madeleine is going through by biological parents, close relatives, the closest relatives.
Incredibly and we hid her so well that we then decided we'd move her in the car, which we hired weeks later, and it's just ridiculous.
So now we have a change of language from ludicrous to ridiculous. We have a car entering her language, and the timing is not lost on us either. She now says weeks later. So if someone was concerned that the death took place at a different time, she's now saying, you've got a good idea to be concerned about that. She's playing with the time. Mm-hmm. So to narrow down the time frame to what they want us to think it is would not be a wise investigatory move. We'd have to be open to other time here.
When you come back to Portugal, do you feel closer to Madeleine?
And although I don't know where Madeleine is, that is the last place that I saw her and held her, and I guess there's a part of me that still feels connected to her there. So.
This was an interesting question, and I thought for an interview that I did not think very highly of, this was a fascinating question that grabbed my attention. And I think the interviewer might be probing for what we actually get here. Is her answer is important. Although I don't know where Madeleine is, no one accused you of that. So before she even gets to her emotion, she has a need to deny that she knows where Madeleine is. You know what that tells me? She knows where Madeleine is.
Right.
That she's actually affirming that we hid her incredibly well. These two smart people who were in panic mode for themselves hid her incredibly well. So although I don't know where Madeleine is, we call that the negation. She wants us to know what she doesn't know. Very sensitive. And then she uses the phrase, you know. And what we do with any type of habit of speech is we look where it comes up and where it doesn't come up. And it shows an acute awareness of the interviewer. So we notice what topics will provoke that, what topics do not provoke it. And about the location of Madeleine, it provoked it. Then she says, and I think this is important, I saw her, held her. Now, in order to hold her, you have to see her. Seeing her is unnecessary. People speak that way about dead people. about dead family members. Because in order to hold her, you have to see her, unless you held a dead body. I think that when Madeleine's lifeless body was carried, Kate held her. I think she's telling the truth.
I think kids can be written off, missing kids can be written off too easily. You cannot do that. You cannot give up on a child.
This is the mother of a missing child utterly avoiding the call to find her child, utterly avoiding the call to attention of what Madeleine is suffering through. Instead, this is extreme distancing. I don't want Madeleine written off, I want her found. No, kids, general, can be written off. You know, again, that awareness of the interviewer. Missing kids, no, my Madeleine. Missing kids can be written off. This is someone who has well moved beyond in the grieving stage. She has well processed the information. Madeleine's not coming home, and she's at peace with it now. This is a distancing language of kids, child. The use of the word child there again is something that, we don't say kid abuser, kid molester. We say child abuse, child molester. This use of the word child, although it's not conclusory by itself, with the other indicators, causes me to be concerned that Madeleine was a victim of child abuse inside that home. I don't know for certain. There are certain things that I do and can say that with a strong conclusion. That's an element that must be explored.
Right.
Kids are survivors.
Jerry says kids are survivors. He doesn't tell us Madeleine's a survivor. He follows the same vein. What they're doing is psychologically they're gone. They're distancing themselves from Madeleine. That she doesn't exist. And in the statement, and this is why it's so important to consider, it's not just that they show no concern about Madeleine. We have to enter into their language. We have to go into their world. The reason they're not concerned about Madeleine is because she's beyond concern. She doesn't exist any longer. So it's natural for them to talk about kids being survivors and kids doing this, or you feeling that, or you feeling this, because they've already processed it. It's gone.
Madeleine means tower of strength. Wherever she is, whoever she's been with, whatever's happened, we will get her through it.
Okay, my transcript says, Madeleine means tower of strength. Wherever she was, whoever she's been with, whatever's happened, we will get her through it. Several things. She doesn't tell us that Madeleine is a tower of strength. She doesn't say that she has any strength. She doesn't show any detailed concern for Madeleine. And she says, we will get her through it, which is a form of passivity. After saying Madeleine, the name means strength, but we will get her through it. There's a disconnect there in language, which is more narrative storytelling, almost poetic. We'd find that on a card of someone well after death.
You will not rest until you find your daughter, until you wrap your arms around her.
Why do they say such things? As a journalist, why feed information to a subject that way? Makes no sense.
Yeah.
I don't believe any parent could, and I don't believe we could ever reach a point where we just think, oh, well, we've done everything now. Whilst the situation remains as it is, Madeleine's out there and she needs us to find her.
You'll keep looking forever.
We will.
This is, again, another indication that the processing of information has been complete. She tells us what she doesn't believe, tells us what doesn't happen. I don't believe any parent could, and I don't believe we ever could, reach a point, and this is her language that I believe her, we just think, oh, well, we've done everything now. I think that we've hidden her incredibly well. We've done everything now. Her death wasn't intended. We've moved on. So while Madeleine's plight, while Madeleine's pain, while Madeleine's suffering is there, no, while the situation remains. It's a situation. Madeleine is no longer part of the picture. There's a situation, and those in situation involved in it are she and her husband. For them, it's a situation. It is not a trauma. This is very soft language. The situation remains. Not Madeleine's not been found. And you know, Madeleine's out there. Do you notice that she avoids saying anything about the person that has her or the people that have her? So not only do we not have any connection, but even if they had been guided by law enforcement, they would be speaking to the kidnappers. They would be seeking to provoke empathy or some reason to bring her back. No, she's just out there in the passive voice. That again is another indication they're not concerned. Madeleine's beyond the need of their concern. What's the last thing she says? She needs us to find her. You keep looking forever. Okay? And I can't help but wonder if the interviewer thought they're going to be like what we call the O.J. Simpson searching for the real killer. O.J. said he was going to search for the rest of his life for the real killer. He had no confidence it was going to happen any time before that.
Right.
Instead of saying we're going to search until she's found, it's just going to be, we'll keep looking, forever.
Yeah. You mention baby Ayla here, Peter, in relation to this. Baby Ayla, A-Y-L-A.
Yes.
Have you mentioned that?
Baby Ayla, not in the interview here, but
right.
in the analysis.
Right. Okay. Do you want to mention that now?
Sure. Baby Ayla was in Waterville, Maine, and she was reported kidnapping by her father. And the father was not cooperating with police, and the family was the mother, because they're not married, was trying to get the father to speak. And she finally told media that the father is not cooperating with police. This got a response from him. Liars are always concerned about their reputation. He said, contrary to rumors floating around out there, I have been cooperating with police. And so with the phrase, rumors floating around out there, is a strong indication that baby's in water. And that's where the searching went on. He had, was asked, how did you do on your polygraph? He had been accused of low-level drug dealing, child abuse, other things. He answered, I smoked it. I smoked it. So we give ourselves away by the words that we choose. And there is like almost like a junior high school student talking about a test. I smoked my math test. It's a missing child. He referenced her in the past tense. He never showed concern at any given time for anything that the child may have been experiencing. All his concern was about himself. This is the same of the McCanns. It's very similar. And when we listen to people and follow their language, and their concern is making sure they ridicule instead of deny any possibility of their involvement, that's what their priority is. But we went through this interview, and not once did I hear a single word of human empathy expressed from Madeleine. Not once. Madeleine is the victim. And if the deception was to be believed, someone had Madeleine. And was she wearing a warm coat on a cool night? Anything, even the slightest bit of concern, none of that is in their radar because it's not in their hearts. It's not in their minds. It's not in their minds because they know that Madeleine is beyond all help. What I concluded from just this interview itself is that Madeleine is dead. The death was not intentional. That they have disposed of her remains in a hidden manner of which they feel confident will not be found. The cause of death was likely not intended and may have included both causing her to be very sleepy and a fall. They have feared being accused. Their concerns about themselves, and that the time frame that they've given must be questioned. Those are things that I conclude strongly. Now, what makes this so strong is that this includes an embedded confession. They actually confess to what they did. And I think we should not discount the word fall, that no one asked them if she fell. It was no part of the interview. He introduced that word. It's very important.
Okay.
If you ask me, as a matter of public record, Peter, you're conclusion that the McCanns are showing guilty knowledge in the death of Madeleine, how sure are you of that? I am able to answer that knowing that my career is looked at and say, I'm certain.
Okay. All right, and Peter, well, I'd just like to thank you very much indeed, and it's been a pleasure to have met you. Thank you.
Thank you.